One day, so me and another guy got hired, and we would travel to the police academy every day. We picked up a squad car from the police station, and we would drive to the Chicago Police Academy. At the end of the day, we'd take it back, get in our personal cars, and go home. One day, we come back to the police station to drop off the squad car. We walk around the corner in the police station, and there's two supervisors, acting like they black. We walk around the corner, they're supervisors. These are older white gentlemen, and they act, and me and the other guy are both black. We walk around the corner, and everybody's like the deer in the headlights. We're new hires, they're supervisors, we just kept it moving. It's like, what the heck did I get myself into? These are supervisors in the department in which I work. But God put me here. I go through what I believe is a successful career in the department I got hired for. I worked there for 10 years. And in my 10-year period working there, I believe I made an impact on that department, and I believe I made an impact in that community. When I got my first chief job, a guy approached me about becoming a police chief in 2001. I prayed about it first and foremost. I started talking to my network throughout law enforcement, judges, other police officers, public defenders, state's attorneys, everybody. And I had been blessed to have a good reputation. And everybody said, you know, because the department I was going to was a corrupt police department. It was very corrupt. And so the guy that asked me to come said, hey, I need somebody I can trust. He says, I know you've never been a chief before, but I put trust as paramount, and I think you can figure everything else out. And my mom and my dad always taught me that ain't nobody else better than you. And when I interviewed for the job, one of the people that interviewed me told me, he was a 30-year veteran in law enforcement. Man, you just been the police for 10 years. You ain't been a supervisor for but about 3 months. What makes you think you could be a police chief here? I said, sir, the people who I got rid of was about to go to jail. If I can't do any better than them, there's a problem. That was my answer to him. And so I was able to, I made that decision that I was gonna go there. Before I left, I had to go and tell my boss and everybody, and my supervisor at the time, it's an older white guy, supervisor. He had mentored me, he had become a personal friend. I went to his house. He wasn't working that day. I went to his house and told him what was happening. We sat in his living room, and this guy, who was probably 20 years older than me, started crying. He started telling me how proud of me he was, and how the things that he fed into me, he knew I was gonna do great things in life and in law enforcement, and he just wished me, I know you're gonna be successful. When I got to that first job, the first week I was there, he came to my office and said, man, I gotta see your office. I'm just so proud of you. I wanna see where you're at. Fast forward, 2016, when I started at the department I'm at now, the first day I got in the office, there's a handwritten letter. This guy had long retired and moved out of the state, but he heard I got my third chief's job. There was a handwritten letter from this guy talking about, I've been following you, I'm so proud of you. Oh, I forgot to tell you who that guy was. He was one of them two supervisors who was acting black. That is an example of how, when you get to know somebody, or you get to know a people, it can change your heart, and it can change your head. My friend talked about training that can help people stop getting killed by the police. Training ain't gonna stop nobody for the police from killing somebody. Training is not gonna do it. We got enough training to make sure that we are prepared enough to do that. We gotta change the hearts and the heads of the people that are wearing the badge. And those people who don't have the right heart and don't have the right head, we gotta get rid of them. That's what has to happen. People will tell me that, you know what, Mitch, after this whole stuff with George Floyd, this new criminal justice reform legislation, there's so many law enforcement officers that's leaving the profession. You know what? Let them go. If you think that we literally hold the power of life and death in our hands, And if you believe that because people want to hold you accountable for that, that that's a problem, then you need to go. That's what has to happen. And that the way that happens is by having powerful chiefs like Chief Red that are not afraid to do what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. So that's how my career has gone. And so I've been blessed. I truly have been blessed. Like I said, I know why God has put me here. He's put me here because he keeps blessing me with stuff. As you heard, I was the first black president in the 80-year history of the Illinois Chiefs Association. That wasn't me. That wasn't me. We got 1,300 members in that organization. It ain't enough black folks to elect me. It's got to be professionals that respect me. And so when you get elected, they didn't elect me because of what happened with George Floyd, because in the Illinois Chiefs, you get elected to third vice president, and then you ascend to the presidency. So when I got elected, nobody knew who George Floyd was. But it's no coincidence that my presidency happened when this all happened. That's no coincidence. It's coincidence that my presidency happened when the Criminal Justice Safety Act, the Criminal Justice Reform Bill, was being put into place. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. So we gotta hit on that. And because we at the family reunion, you tell family stuff, you don't tell everybody else, right? So I'm gonna let you all in on some stuff, and that's why I gave a disclaimer up front. I'm gonna let you all in on my experience on that whole process. So, first Black President, Illinois Chiefs Association. I am the chairperson of the Illinois Law Enforcement and Training and Standards Board. For those who don't know what that is, it's the governing body for all training in the state of Illinois for police. We certify all police officers, we decertify them. We're over every police academy in the state of Illinois. Anybody over the last 2 years that's graduated from a police academy in the state of Illinois got Mitch Davis's my signature on there, approving them coming out. The governor recently also appointed me on the Commission for Discrimination and Hate Crimes. And they're doing some tremendous work on that commission as well. I have worked with the Black Caucus. I have worked with them, and Rep West said, man, we have been on 1 million Zoom meetings together. We know who each other are, but we haven't seen one another because everybody's been on those Zoom meetings watching screens. So, I hope, all right, man, I don't look too different. Okay, all right. So, I'm on the board of directors for the International Association of Chiefs of Police as well. I'm the chairman for the International Chiefs Association Juvenile Justice and Child Protection Committee. And our national conference is next week in Dallas. And at that conference, I will actually be announcing my candidacy to run for vice president for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. So, I don't share those things to impress you. I share them to impress upon you that my plan to be a computer programmer was not his plan. And when you walk in his plan, he got you. He got you. He got you. No matter what the enemy it might not always be comfortable, but he's got you. And that's what I realized, and that's how I walk without being scared. So, right now, some of the most important work that we've done, we already talked about the 10 shared principles with the NAACP, but some of the most important work that's happened has been over these last few years since George Floyd was murdered. And see, a lot of people get mad, a lot of law folks get mad when I say he was murdered. Maybe he was murdered. Yeah, he was murdered. So he was, but I'm just telling you the inside stuff here now. Come on now, I'm letting you in the inside. That's what a lot of them say. So I traveled the country for many years before George Floyd was murdered, talking to my colleagues, most who don't look like me, about the importance of law enforcement, understanding the challenges and the questions that communities of color have, and starting to address those and partner, and let's move forward. Once again, I traveled the country for that. And when George Floyd was murdered, people were like, you know what, there's a dude out there that's already talking about this stuff that needs to happen. So I worked for 2 years with the London Met Police Department on helping them develop systems to deal with racial disparities in the community and in the police department. Because once again, until we change the culture that exists in law enforcement, we ain't changing nothing. We put all the laws in place, we put all the training in place, but if we don't change the heart and the head of those folks that are carrying the badge, ain't nothing gonna happen. So that has to be part of the process. So, last couple of years, George Floyd is murdered. So I was the president of the South Suburban Police Chiefs Association when George Floyd was murdered. As president, the next day, I put out a statement. The next day, denouncing the murder, not the death, but the murder of George Floyd. Some of my fellow board members, who don't look like me, contacted me and said, how dare you send out something with my name on the letterhead? You gotta wait for the investigation to play itself out. You don't know, we gotta wait till this all unfolds. And I won't tell you, my mama said this, so I ain't gonna tell you what I said to her. But I actually had other board members that did stand up with me, and I did not hold back or apologize for what I had done and said, because once again, I spoke the truth and I do it unapologetically. And so when that happened, we moved forward. And soon thereafter, the Congressional Black Caucus said that, the Legislative Black Caucus for the state of Illinois said that, hey, we gotta put some laws in place. I'm an alpha. All right, I'm an alpha. So some of the members who were responsible for this legislation being initiated called me and said, hey man, we need you at the table. So I wasn't the president yet, I was first vice president. So I was transitioning at this point in time. When everything first started, I was transitioning. So law enforcement formed, and this, once again, this is, I'm not trying to be put this inside stuff that people don't know. Law enforcement formed a coalition to represent law enforcement in the negotiations for criminal justice reform bill. They called it the coalition. The coalition consisted of the Chicago FOP. I don't know if y'all ever seen anything in the news about Chicago FOP, but I ain't going out. That's a whole nother speech. The state of Illinois FOP, these State Troopers FOP, and the Sheriff's Association for the state of Illinois, and the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. That was the coalition. I'm not the president yet, I'm first vice president. I ain't the smartest dude, but I'm saying, okay, y'all forming a coalition to represent law enforcement, to deal with the Legislative Black Caucus on criminal justice reforms. And reforms deal with communities of color. None of them organizations represent law enforcement of color. I was the National Executive Board member for the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, NOBLE. NOBLE is the go-to organization in the country. The White House, everywhere else. When they need something, when it pertains to black folks in law enforcement, they contact NOBLE. I was on that executive board for 3 years. I've sat across the table with the Attorney General, with the FBI directors, the DEA directors. I've had conversations with them, and some of them has been uncomfortable because remember, I don't have no filter. Okay. But I've sat in those meetings. So I contacted our national office and said, hey, this is what we got going on in Illinois. They got this coalition. I want you all's permission for me to put NOBLE on that coalition. They said, we give you all a blessing, do what you got to do out in Illinois. I contact the coalition, I write a nice little email saying just what I just said, that hey, there's no representation of officers of color. We believe NOBLE needs to be a part of this coalition. That's what I heard back from them. So, but you know what? I'm about to be president. So you might be able to keep me off NOBLE hat on, but you can't keep me from being president of Illinois Chiefs. So right before I took over as president, the governor signed the bill into law. I don't know if anybody saw that bill signing, but it was at Chicago State University, and some of it was virtual, some people were in person. But there was one person that spoke for law enforcement. I put my NOBLE hat on, and I spoke on behalf of NOBLE. I will tell you, I got hate emails, I got hate phone calls, I got hate, they got me on social media. Law enforcement people across Illinois were pissed. How dare you? We wasn't gonna have nothing to discuss, and the coalition was really pissed. We don't want to have anything to do with criminal justice reform. So how are you representing law enforcement with the criminal justice reform legislation, and you're saying you don't want to have nothing to do with criminal justice reform? This is the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And so I spoke when the governor signed that bill into law. And once again, people was pissed, but they be all right. They be all right. After that, I was due to become president. The executive director of the Illinois Chiefs Association came to me and says, Mitch, older white guy, great friend of mine, great person, says, Mitch, they scared that you're gonna be the president now. I said, who is they? The coalition. I just started smiling. I took that as a badge of honor, that they would be scared. What are you scared of? I want equity. I want equity. I heard a good friend of mine speak a few months ago at a conference I was at. And he shared the saying that I told him I was going to steal. And when I finish my dissertation and write my book, I'm going to use part of this for my title. But he shared a saying that I've been using. It says that some people are so used to entitlement and privilege that to them, equity feels like oppression. And that's what law enforcement is going through. That equity makes them feel like oppression. We used to be able to do what we want to do. What do you mean you're trying to tell us? You can't tell us what we're supposed to do. So I become president. We have our first coalition meeting. And before we had the coalition meeting, me and my board members had a meeting before the meeting. And I told them, y'all know me, y'all know how I feel about these cats. Don't be surprised. They know me. So we get into this meeting, and once again, it's inside school. Two of the representatives, I won't say who they are, but the Chicago FOP and the state FOP, but two of the representatives said that, hey, we just had a meeting with a minister. I'm not going to say the minister's name, but he's running for mayor in Chicago. It said we had a meeting with him, and he took us before about 800 black ministers across the state of Illinois. And we told them that this Safety Act, this legislation has nothing to do. It's not going to help out the black communities. It ain't going to make the black community safer. And they're just going on and on and on about this. And they're talking to everybody in the coalition. And I'm sure my colleagues are like, he's eerily silent. Because you can tell I'm not silent. But I just let him talk. Let him talk. Let him talk. And during this time, it was the first trailer bill. It was the first trailer bill that was supposed to be signed. So for those who don't understand, when a law passes, oftentimes there's revisions that have to be made. And they're done in the form of what's called a trailer bill. So they pass other legislation to correct some of the things they want to correct. So we were working on the verbiage for the trailer bill. And we had put in a lot of work because, backtrack again, they didn't want anything to do with criminal justice reform. So the tactic was, we're not going to give the legislators any verbiage, because if we give them verbiage, they're going to say we worked with them. And we don't want our names affiliated with reform. This is real stuff, y'all. I'm telling you what goes on behind the scenes. I'm that guy, only one sitting in the room like, damn, I can't believe y'all. But I can. So they don't want to have anything to do with it. So the original law passes. And if you all remember, there was a media blitz. They didn't ask for any input from us. They just put this bill through. That was a lie. That was a lie. We were in meetings and the legislators would ask us, okay, if it's stuff you don't like, tell us specifically what it is and what you would like for it to say. Well, we need time to look at it. They would never give them an answer, because the tactic was, we're going to let them pass it, and we're just going to bombard everybody and make them believe that, hey, we hope it fails. And we're going to sit back and say, see, told you. Well, when I became president, I said, you know what? We ain't working with this coalition like that no more. We ain't gonna just cut ties with them, but we ain't tied to them at the hip. So we started working with the legislators on our own, and they didn't like that. So when the trailer bill came up, we had our first meeting with me as president, and they're talking about how this guy took us before these ministers, and we told them that, hey, this ain't no good for the black community. And they said, we're gonna put out a letter to all these ministers with all of our signatures on there saying that this is a horrible legislation and it doesn't help the black communities. Now I can't be silent no more. Excuse me, you hit the raise hand on Zoom. Excuse me, sir, you are more than welcome to put out whatever press release you want, but don't put Mitch Davis's name on there or the Illinois Chiefs Association. Well, what are you talking about, Mitch? We put in a lot of work on this trailer bill in good faith. It would be disingenuous for us to now come back and put out something saying that we are against it, and I'm not doing it. Well, what are you talking about? Explain it to us. The stuff that you all just said about the bill and the reforms not helping the black community, I said, let me explain something to you. Criminal justice reform is not about making the community safer. It's about having better relationships between law enforcement and the people in those communities. No, it's not, Mitch. Excuse me? What? No, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about. I said, you know what? This was the power of silence. I'm not going to even discuss that with you because you don't know what you're talking about, and that's not what we're here today. We're here for today. So that set them off. They said, well, Mitch, when they screw you, he didn't say screw, he said, when they screw you, don't come running back to us wanting our support as a coalition. I said, sir, that's something you'll never have to worry about. As long as Mitch Davis is president of Illinois Chiefs, my name could never be on the same piece of paper as yours anyway. So you don't ever have to worry about that. You gotta teach people how to treat you, right? You gotta teach people how to treat you. So that's still an ongoing process with the Safety Act. There's a lot of work that's being done. There's stuff that needs to get fixed. There is. But the whole Chicken Little, the sky's falling, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. I know my time is up now, President. I'm going to shut it down now. There's just so much that I can share with you all. But the point I wanted to get to you all was this, is that as many of those statistics as you may hear, there's a whole lot of us that are, imagine my fights. I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but imagine my fights. And I'm doing it because my mama put it in my heart, in my head, that this is what I was supposed to do. I'm doing it for my kids and my grandkids and the people in our communities that don't have a seat at that table. I can't sit at that table and be silent. It says in the Bible, to whom much is given, much is required. And that's why this is my ministry. That's why this is my ministry. And there's a lot of people out there, and I talk to my colleagues, because everybody ain't like me. Everybody ain't like me. It is what people are, who they are, and it's not good, bad, or indifferent. But I tell my colleagues, y'all know I'm gonna speak up. Because when I became president of Illinois Chiefs, the executive board consists of 20 people. You have a 2-year term. So every president gets to appoint half those people, 10 people each year. There were some vacancies left when I became president, so I had about 13 people to appoint. 11 of those 13 was brown folks. I did not appoint them because they were black. I appointed them because they were qualified and they were black. When people saw the names of the chiefs from around the state of Illinois that I had on the board, they were like, how you get him? How you get her? I got a relationship with them. I got relations, but I told them all before I gave them those appointments, I'm not giving you something just for a title. I can't be the only voice in the room because first of all, I can't be in every room. And I need for you all to say something. And my brothers and sisters who are not African American, I love you all because when I'm in those meetings and in those, International Chiefs Association, when I say the things that I say, every single time when I walk out in the hallway or in the hospitality suite at night, people come up to me and say, man, I'm glad you said that. Thank you. Thank you. So my goal is to empower you all. Because I know it's difficult to go against your folks that look like that. You grew up like that. But they expect it from me. It's more powerful when it's coming from you. So those chiefs that are out there, once again, you ain't got to be black. You just got to have that right heart and the right head and want to do the right thing even when it's uncomfortable. So I've shared some about myself. I've shared something about some of the things that I've been faced with over these last couple of years. You see, I didn't even open the daggone book, y'all. So thank you, sir, for helping out with that. But I spoke from my heart, and I hope I poured something into somebody. And Madam President, thank you so much for blessing me and allowing me the opportunity to come and address you all. And thank you all, and have a great evening.